All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, thank you. I thought with the refreshment, we are all in food coma already. Uh, so please continue to help yourself to the refreshments. See, it's running already. That's how good it is. Very common lah. Okay, I'm quite curious. Before we start officially, I do have a question. Who has attended our previous brown bag sessions in Deutsche Bank? Okay, so about one third, close to half. Okay, cool. Who has attended more than one session of the brown bag? Oh, about the same people. Oh, thank you for the active support. Um, okay, so for the rest of you who is here for the first time, let me introduce myself. I'm Alex. I'm the Executive Director of Caring for Life. Who here has heard of Caring for Life? I'm always very nervous with this question. Okay, so about half heaven. Okay, we need to do better with our publicity. So Caring for Life is a suicide prevention charity. But our main target audience is not so much on the person with suicide ideation as per se, but really the community around them. Because for the person in distress and with suicide ideation, there are actually a lot of existing services already, right? But the question is, how do we become the bridge and the connector to the professional? Because for them, the first one who would spot sign that something is wrong is really the people around them, your family members, your friends, the community, etc. So therefore, Caring for Life, when we were first operational since 1st April 2020, we've been doing quite a fair bit of trainings, initiatives, etc., to push this advocacy message that suicide prevention is everyone's business. But along the way, we started to broaden the definition or the concept of suicide prevention. We are very familiar with the idea of how when the suicide prevention is when a person has suicide ideation, how to prevent a potential attempt. And I'll have a program for that later as well. And that's actually our main key thrust of our program. But we begin to broaden and include the idea of how do we run initiatives and have a community whereby we can even lower the likelihood of having a suicide ideation. And that's where the whole spectrum of mental health and mental wellness come in as well. And with that led to the first creation of brown bag session in collaboration with Deutsche Bank, started in 2024. Yeah, okay, yes. Where we recognize that most of us actually spend quite a bit of our life at work. So workplace is something that we cannot ignore. So we try to cover as many different components relating to mental health at work. And today is no exception lah. Okay? Oh, is it me? Okay, so on the screen itself, we have two QR codes. The first QR code, oh, by the way, we are also on Zoom as well. So we have Zoom audience watching also, okay? So we have two QR codes. One on the top is to our YouTube channel. All sessions for lunch talk subsequently will be recorded, including today, and will be uploaded on YouTube. Okay, so feel free to come back to watch it or share with others as well. And there'll be a lot of new content going along the way also, with most of our events being recorded and put up there. So please subscribe, right? And we also have a list of CFL songs, Caring for Life songs, written by our volunteers through AI, but he has interviewed different group of vulnerable individuals and with their stories inspired those songwriting as well, which I think is quite nice lah. Then the second QR code below is the Eventbrite page. I think most of you probably got the registration through Eventbrite, but do follow our page itself because we have a lot of events coming up. Okay. For example, a big one is coming up. It's in March, where we'll be having a very important conversation about self-harm. Okay, there'll be two talks coming up in March. One is on the general understanding, literacy, and prevalency towards self-harm by someone very senior in IMH. And then followed by another talk on a different day about the emotional and physical first aid to person with self-harm, right? This will be by Shine. So you can see the importance of this topic, and we're going to be doing it at online so that we can reach out to as many people as we can. But this is how important this conversation is lah. So do follow that Eventbrite to get that first notification. It's always a first registered, first served basis lah. So that's for March. In September, we are going to have our second run of the Suicide Prevention Summit. Some of you may have attended last year's one. where we design different components relating to suicide, right? But it's more for the general public. So last year we had talks for example, for seniors. We have talks on youth. We even have the first talk on below for signs and signal for children who display when they're having suicide ideation for under 18, right, etc. And this year we'll cover more components relating to that, right? You can even go to our YouTube to watch some of the previous recordings actually, right? So that's in September. And in October, we also will be doing a mental health awareness event on music and mental health. Not so much on music therapy, but how do we communicate various different mental health literacy through the use of music, like songs and music itself. So I think it's going to be very exciting, right? So please follow our Eventbrite page so that you can be notified the moment it's launched, and then you can register straight away as well. For those of you who have just arrived, please help yourself to refreshments, right? I mean, there's still a bit left. Don't be shy, okay? Just take, yeah. Okay, yeah, right. It's really a bit slow. Let's click for me. Yeah. Okay, so some quick admin note. So just be informed again that this will be recorded and uploaded to YouTube. Okay. And during the presentation and the discussion, we will not be taking any questions first. But at the second half, right, somewhere around the half an hour mark, then we will start opening up for Q&A for both the live audience and the ones on Zoom as well. Okay. For those who are on Zoom, you can always put your question in the chat function first. Right. I have my colleague Dean who will keep a lookout, right, and also share with me what some of the questions as well. If you have any feedback, suggestions for future topics, or if you're interested to be a future speaker, you can write directly into me. Right, my email is over there, alexio@caringforlife.org. One of the main reasons why we are doing this, right, to feature not only the whole spectrum of mental health and mental wellness, but also to feature as many different stakeholders in this as possible, so that people understand there are these kind of resources out there, right? So this is what all this is all about, yeah? I see a few phones coming up. That's very good. Thank you. Okay, next. Okay, this one is not up officially on our Eventbrite page yet because we have some tiny bit of confirmation to be made, but the topic is already confirmed. So in February, on the lunch talk, it's going to be on 2nd February, 12 to 1 p.m., same location as well. And it's going to be about the balancing between caregiving and work-life balance. And we'll have a speaker from Mindful, right, who is really one of the main thrusts for many years now on caregiver to caregiver. Right, you may have heard of their previous name, Caregiver Alliance Limited. I personally have benefited from their program quite a bit, so I can say for sure they are pretty good. Okay, so this event, the registration is not up yet. We just have a bit more clearance to make, but this is pretty much confirmed. So just log in your calendar first, follow our Eventbrite page. Once it's up, just register. Okay, next. This one is something that I'm really looking forward to, and I think I need a lot. So you'll notice that on our Eventbrite, we actually will be doing 2 series concurrently. One is on work-related things like today, lunch talk. But on Saturdays, we'll be doing the community mental health series. So this is more for community and general public at large. We started off in January, start of the year with Sharmain as one of our main speaker on managing fresh start, right? For February, it's going to be on sleep. I think we all can agree sleep is important okay? I think I need a bit more and how to optimize it. And it's not common for you to have a senior consultant from ENT clinic to speak on this, right? And each time when we have talks like this, I realize that our participants will ask questions pertaining to their situation. And that's where you get live advice as well, right? So just keep a lookout. It's going to be on 2nd February, 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. That what they say? 7th February, right? Yeah. 7th February. I say that right? Oh, sorry. No wonder. Okay. See, I need more sleep. Yeah. So yeah, 7th February, 2 to 3:30 p.m. Right? Do we know what's the first Saturday for March already? What was it about? Procrastination, right? Yeah. Oh, I see a few laughter already. Okay, very good sign. It's about managing procrastination. In March, and in April it's going to be on parenting series. Yeah, very exciting. In fact, we already confirmed our speaker for March should be from a speaker from Clarity, one of the charities, and in April it's going to be from Focus on the Family. The poster is not up yet because a few more tweaking to do, right? But the speakers, the details are fairly well locked down already. So keep a lookout, okay? I am very excited for this series. For me, each time I benchmark on how good the talk is based on how much I've learned, and I can tell you I've learned a lot each time. So yes, I'm very excited for this one. For this, the registration, the QR code is already up. So you can scan on top and just register directly. But take note that it's going to be online, so please don't come Deutsche Bank for this. Yeah, it's going to be online. Just find somewhere comfortable. It's going to be on Zoom and should be quite good. I see a few phones. Okay, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I think you need this too. Okay. Okay, next please. Then one last Koyo to sell. So sorry about this. For Caring for Lima, the main thing that we do is really our suicide prevention program, right? It's a 4 hours live training workshop in which we will teach you how to identify early sign of suicide ideation, and then how do you have that how do you have the open conversation to bring them to safety, right? Because the reality here is that we don't walk around with a label saying that we are thinking about suicide, right? That's why oftentimes we say that it's invisible, but there are signs and signal. And this program is really designed for everyone, okay? And this program is fully sponsored by our donors, at least up to the end of 2026, so it's free of charge, right? So far, by the end of 2025, we have already trained more than 4,000 people under this. We hope to clock another 1,000 plus this year. So if you have attended this program before and you think this is good, please recommend to your friends and community. And if you want to host it in your agency or even at your own house, let us know. We have done this session in people's house already, right? So it's quite interesting experience lah. So once again, if you are interested, I have one already coming up on April on Zoom, 18th April 2 to 6 p.m. on Zoom. You will see that there are actually more sessions before that, March, February, and January, but they're all fully booked already lah. So April was we still have some vacancy. Yeah. So yes, I think that's the last Koyo already. Yeah. Yes, okay. So enough about myself. Today is really all about the speakers. I am actually very excited for today's topic. It's really about AI and mental health. I think at the back of my mind, I always have been thinking about this quite a bit. Let me be very clear. Whatever that is shared today is really just our own personal opinion. It may not necessarily represent the agency that we come from. And for myself, I am a proponent for AI, but it's always good to know what are some of the safeguards that I put for myself as well, right? And similarly, I'm sure many of you know of people who uses AI in different aspects, right? Whether is it for work, for leisure, and some of them might even use it for social connection, right? Chatting through with a chatbot. I once had someone that I know of who asked the chatbot to say, from now on you are called Chatty or you are called John or Jane. No, really. And then subsequently when they have the conversation, they'll respond with that name. So they personalize their own agent as well. No, there are this kind of thing that's going on. So I would love to learn from the two experts today, right, about their view and also what are some of the things that we should look out for. So I'm going to invite, first of all, Sharmain, the founder of Total Runners Initiative. A round of applause for her, please. And of course, okay, and we're going to invite Onno from MOHT. Thank you very much. Okay. So today, in terms of the conversation, we're going to be focusing on 3 themes, right? Then along the way, if you have any question, just pen it down first. At about 12:40 mark, I will start asking for questions, okay? Including from the Zoom as well. So today, the 3 main themes really we'll be looking at here, it's the relationship between AI and mental health, right? We also will try to tackle this from some evidence or literature as well, review. Then followed by the digital and information safety for mental health. Okay, so maybe what are some of the existing steps that's taken? And last but not the least, from the perspective of self-awareness, which is what are some of the signs and signals that a person may need professional help if they start using AI in the following ways. Okay, but before we do that, may I first invite my two more panelists to introduce yourself a little bit, your work and your relation when it comes to AI. So yes.
Yeah, it's on. Okay. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Onno. So I work as an AI scientist at MOHT, and specifically for the Mindline.sg team. So Mindline.sg is the national mental health first stop touchpoint from Singapore. So we run a website where people can find resources and self-help, referrals, get information, get self-assessments. But we also just started, together with IMH, we started a national helpline called 1771. Some of you might have seen it on posters or online ads. I see it every day on my HTB blog. There's always this screen with advertising the helpline. So it's really to reduce or to lower the threshold of people seeking help, and that everyone can really find the appropriate level of care. How did I get into this field? I've actually been working in this field for quite a long time. So about 10 years ago, I was already building virtual therapists, using AI, but then the technology then was much more basic. So it's much more like, logic based. And everyone then thought I was a bit weird, building these virtual therapists. But now actually ChatGPT, one of the main use cases is therapy. So I guess I was just ahead of the curve. So yeah, I guess my background is in AI psychology. And I think this is very interesting intersection of those fields, which we'll get into today more. So.
Hi everyone, my name is Sharmain. I'm the founder of Total Wellness Initiative Singapore. We are a social enterprise looking at wellness from a more holistic perspective. So at Twist, beyond just psychological wellness and things like physical wellness, we also cover 8 other dimensions. We have 10 in total, so it includes things like social wellness, creative wellness, digital wellness, so on and so forth. And really the main aim of what we do is try to help people learn new ways to care for themselves, and also learn things on how to take care of people around them, because like community, when it comes to mental health and wellness, is really, really important. Yeah, so one of our key partners is IMH, so we develop programs with them. We also go down to schools as well as like corporates to run different workshops and talks and programs to do that.
Yep. So if you have any questions later, please squeeze them dry, okay? This is really a very unique opportunity for you. For me, when I'm trying to form the kind of questions that I want to explore, to be very honest, I have a confession to make, and that is that it seems that the news that I've been reading about AI, my relation to mental health, tend to be a bit more negative. For example, I've come across an article not too long ago whereby this person is, I would say, the parents very upset that the AI is teaching the child on how to overdose, for example, right? Or even reinforcing suicide in the ideation as well. And I don't really see as much of the other side, right, when it comes to how it could have been a positive contributor. So I just want to hear from our two panelists on your thoughts in terms of any correlation between AI and mental health, right? Both the positive and the negative. So yeah.
So yeah, I definitely agree. A lot of the headlines are scary, a bit sensationalist, and there are real risks. So I'm not saying that those aren't real, but yeah, there is also a lot of positive impact. Like OpenAI recently published some numbers. More than 1 million people talk to ChatGPT about suicide every week. I think it's good to kind of feel in yourself like what is your initial response to that? Like for a lot of us, it's like, oh, that's scary, or we're sad, that's the state of the world. That means that every week 1 million people don't have access to someone to talk to about these things. So in a sense, yeah, it's great. Finally, 1 million people can finally get some kind of support. I wouldn't call it therapy, but some kind of support. Maybe they can be encouraged to actually seek help. It can be a stepping stone. It can provide some emotional support in the moment, maybe, if they really need urgent care. But yeah, there are risks too. Like, I think there's 2 main categories of risk, like there's the active encouragement of self-harm, but there's also the lack of detecting the urgency of the situation. I think the first one, the early versions of these bots were not very good at that because they were too agreeable. I guess people talk about AI sycophancy, like the bots are trained to be too supporting. So if you go into some, psychotic ideas or some kind of delusional ways of seeing the world, or, like many depressed people, they're truly convinced that the world is better off without that. Yeah, the AI might initially just kind of agree with you because it's trained to agree with you. That's kind of been solved to a large degree, I think. They're much better at this stuff now. But the second category of harm is still very hard, like not appropriately escalating And that's also a problem because it's not well integrated into the whole care system. So people can just slip through the cracks and not get the support they actually need.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think that using AI has its risks, and they are, some of them, like in addition to what Onno mentioned, I think it's like this dependency risk as well, where you, instead of going to a human as well for connection and care, now you are all you're solely focused on using your AI companion as your source of care, and that can be dangerous, right? Because the AI chats are created to be like an echo chamber. It's very infinitely patient with you. And so it might create this false sense of like security and attachment. And that's what we're seeing with a lot of youths that are using AI chats as companions. And yeah, it's a trend now in the US where like 72% of teens have like an AI companion that they share things with, and 30% of them actually feel like it's easier to talk to an AI chat than a person and a human, right? And that to me is slightly scarier than the suicide and the self-harm bit. It's when people start to retreat into themselves and not know how to have proper connection and conversations with people outside. But I do see the positives as well, because again, like you can't have 24 hours by 7 support from people around you. Like people, your friends and your family will go to bed at some point, and our deepest demons comes out at night, right? So unfortunately, whether or not we like it, we do think about a lot of deep stuff, and sometimes we just need a place to process it. For myself, I like text myself at night if I have a lot of thoughts that I need to get out before I go to bed. I think, if it's just for processing thoughts, like the AIs can be a good place. Just don't make it your only source of like information and comfort. Yeah.
Okay, so as we are talking about that part, right, of the dependency, but not making it comfort zone as our main source, right? How easy is that, or how difficult is that? Because earlier you talked about how they are quite agreeable, right? And you mentioned, I think you said 72%, is it, of teens, right? But how? Okay, let's break it down a little bit. I think for youth, we can see one set of challenges. How about for the adult? Do you see that phenomenon, number one, where you see an increasing dependence of AI for social connection and support? But and also, how easy is it to get out of it, right? I think that's also another thing that I'm quite interested to hear.
I don't know about the stats for the adults. I definitely think that in the teens itself, the stats are a lot higher, just because people in the younger generation find it easier to use technology, right? And also, I think the users are more able to come up with prompts that are easier to create this AI companions. And there are a lot of like Reddit threads out there that talks about how do you create the best AI companions for yourself. And in terms of how to get out of it, I did come across this research. So I don't have the exact answer to your question, but I do find it difficult. And it is seen in this research that people are getting very attached to the AI companions. So there's this paper where, Onno mentioned there are new iterations of Chat GPT, right? For now 4 or 5, is there 6 yet? I don't know. But 4 or 5, right? And with every improvement, there are more security procedures in place, right? And so the chats become less agreeable. So for the teens that are using these chats, they are like, oh no, I lost a friend. Because now my friend is responding differently from how it used to a week ago before the updates. And they feel a sense of loss, and they grieve the loss of their friend, and they stop upgrading their chat because they want to retain that friendship and that relationship with someone that they're familiar with. So in fact, I think once you get to a certain point, it might be quite difficult to get out of it, because then you need to, rebuild a relationship. So if you think about, and if you expand that out into your personal life, right? Like the moment you lose a good friend in your life, restarting a new friendship with someone else is quite difficult, and that's what people, I think, are facing. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some of those discussions as well on like Reddit, and you have whole pages where people talk about how they lost their husband, for example, where it's like, oh, you upgraded from version 4 to 4.1, and now my husband is gone. So for me, it's very interesting because, from it's like a psychology point of view, it's like, it's a level of cognitive dissonance. So it's a version update, a piece of software, but you also think it's your husband, and you think those things at the same time. Very interesting. But yeah, I definitely agree. Like we don't really know much of the stats yet. Like how common is this? How harmful it is? And how do you get out of it? I know that there's a couple of organizations that were founded in the last year to get people out of these AI dependencies, almost like a digital rehab. But yeah, I'm also not super aware of their frameworks. But yeah, there is definitely a lot of attention.
So we move on to the next point, right, which is the safety aspects of it. I mean, if we look, you don't have to look too far back. I mean, maybe like even starting from 2024, you already start seeing articles about how people have misused, right, ChatGPT or other AI in general. But now we come to the point of 2026. If you can share with us what are some of the safeguards that's now been put in place, right, that it's good for us to be aware of, right, not just for ourselves, but also our loved ones as well.
I guess one thing is you need to distinguish between like general purpose chatbots and more like custom mental health specific chatbots. So the former is, Gemini, OpenAI, ChatGPT. They definitely have some guardrails now. So if you mention suicide, they would refer you to helplines. They would, say that they're just an AI. They're not supposed to actually give you a clinical service. So that kind of helps. You can push through that typically. So if you look at a lot of the famous cases, it's not that the AI didn't mention that, right? Like they did flag these things, but you can just push through and you can say, oh, I want to just keep talking. And then eventually they would just continue talking. Which actually is a very interesting problem even for therapists. Like if someone has mentioned these things and, they used to say, hey, you should call like a specific suicide escalation helpline or something. It's actually kind of debated in the profession, like whether you should still keep talking as well to kind of keep them engaged, keep them occupied. So I don't know, maybe the appropriate thing would actually be to kind of keep talking, but at the same, that's the missing part. It's like you should also alert some kind of authority to follow up. Mental health specific chatbots, like there's Wiza, there's a lot of these Wobots, although they recently closed down. They tend to be a bit safer because they're a little bit more on the rails, a bit more structured, but that also makes them less natural sounding. So there's a bit of a trade-off. And actually that company Wobot that I just mentioned, they closed down and they cited the regulatory hurdles because, if you really want to make it like a clinically approved tool, it's almost impossible with Gen AI. But then if you make it too kind of standardized, the experience is just not as good and people will still just flock to ChatGPT. So that's why a lot of these mental health startups and companies, they frame it as just wellness. Nobody really wants to call it therapy. But I think that, things are also kind of shifting in that space because everyone knows it's kind of soulless therapy, but it's not mentioned, it's not framed as such. Yeah, so it's also interesting to see what's going to happen.
Okay, then we move on to the last point first, and then I'll open up to the group for any questions. So we talk about, we started off with in terms of the correlation between mental health and AI, right? We mentioned both the positive and the negative, and also some of the new safeguard that they put in place. So let's say I'm the user, right, of this, let's say the Gen AI, ChatGPT, etc., right? What are some of the telltale signs that I need to be aware of myself to say that at this point I need to stop and start looking for professional help?
Yeah, I actually have a slide deck for that, or just a few slides for that. And I thought it'd be easier to just have it on I can give you the slide number. It's on slide number 10 and 11. Yeah, so I thought it'd be good to kind of have things on like a little format. So I created like this trapelite system. So it's just easier to help you, and also you can take a photo. Easier to help you with kind of categorizing how you use your AI chats. So in terms of the green one, I think it's quite straightforward. If you're looking for psycho education, like information, things like breathing exercises or like journaling prompts, right? So all of these are more like get you to think about your wellness and your mental health, those are good. I think it's a great place to go to, like an AI chat for that. Just always be sure to check for sources. So for me, whenever I use the chat, I'll be like, hey, can you give me research-based sources and research papers and give me the links? And what I'll do is I'll go into the links and just make sure that whatever they give me in the summary is actually in the links itself, because sometimes they can give you a link and it doesn't actually have the content. So yeah, that's quite important, but I think a lot of people know that. This is just more of like a reminder. Yellow, it's, with self-assessment, mood tracking. Again, people use it, so we're not gonna say it is bad. Just, something to take note of if you're using it for like deeper personal stuff. And then red is, don't solely rely on AI for crisis situations, not for diagnosis, medication, decisions, and safety planning, right? So currently, based on all of the studies that are out there, they don't do diagnosis very well. And there is a lot of safety things that they might not catch as well, or know how to refer out. So those are things that to take note of. In the next slide, these are more concrete examples. If you feel like you're turning to AI before you are going to a person, right? For emotional support, right? If you see that on the rise, something to take note of. If you feel like you're being more understood by AI, which is a trend now, than people in your life, right? Again, something to take note of, because then you might be getting more dependent on them. There is also, especially for the youth, they are avoiding real world conversations to chat with AI. That means that they're canceling plans in their day to day because they're like, oh, I have a friend at home. I don't have to go out now, right? So that is something to take note of as well. And last but not least, it is okay to use AI as a confidant for immediate help and support that you need. But if you do see that you are using it for 2 weeks in a row and above, then do try to stop yourself from doing that. It might be a bit too much. Yes. So I do have friends who use AI companions, and I make sure as well, if I know a friend is using an AI companion, to check in on them often. And I also like, oh, what are you chatting with your friend about? And sometimes they share their chats with me just so that I can take a look at and read it. And it's quite interesting because it's like I was talking to Onno about this before, but when I was reading their chat, I was like, oh, it's like hearing two of my friends talking to each other, two of the same person talking to each other. So there's the echo chamber effect. So yeah, something to take note of there as well.
Okay, so I think this has been a quite interesting conversation so far. Just want to check in with the audience. Do you have any questions for our panelists? Yes.
I saw a TikTok video promoting AI to kids because they say that in future that is the future of work, and not to focus on the basic things like accounting. So they're encouraging the parents to enroll their kids into AI. So what is your view on that?
I think it's hard to make predictions, especially about the future. 10 years ago, like one of the godfathers of AI, he said, don't train to be a radiologist because AI can just replace you. Now there's actually more radiologists than ever before. And he actually, regretted saying that at that time. I think there's a lot of things we tend to kind of we tend to overestimate how quickly AI is going to transform everything. Being an accountant is not just doing that's task. Like there's a difference between a job and a task. Like AI can do tasks, certain tasks really well, but a job is much around that, right? It's like talking to people, talking to stakeholders, communicating ideas to people. So I don't think AI will just flat out replace entire industries or entire jobs. Things will change, obviously, things will shift. And I do think it's very good for kids to be aware of AI and how to use AI responsibly. I think that should definitely be required in part of the curriculum. But I think it's hard to make, those big, bold statements.
Yeah, and also I agree that we shouldn't be keeping the younger generation from AI because eventually they're going to use it. I think it's more of like ensuring that they have they are educated about AI enough to ensure that they still retain critical thinking while using AI. So one of the issues that I see when youth are using AI now, because when we go down to schools and teach, right, we see that when we have assessments or like work projects, project work, sorry, what I'm saying, project work, they use AI to answer the questions. And I don't really have an issue with people using AI, but I have an issue with youth using AI without really then engaging their minds. So there are a lot of times where they present something that AI gave to them. And I'm like, oh, do you know what that means? Then they're like, no, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, do you not want to know what it means? So to me, that is the bigger danger with the younger generation using AI. They lose their critical thinking ability. And yeah, there's a lot of studies now out there showing that like the more you use AI for a certain function, or a certain purpose, like your brain starts saying that like, oh yeah, I don't need to know that because something else can give me the information, right? So you loses different parts of your abilities in your brain because of the way that you are using AI. So I think it's more of the awareness of how do they use it properly, yeah, and responsibly, yeah, and also plagiarism, all that kind of stuff start from like young. Yeah.
Okay, good. Any next question, please? Yep.
Thank you for the talk. Really good points that we learned, I'm sure. So my name is Nirali. I'm a psychologist by profession. And as Alex mentioned, that we've read a lot of cases about how people are relying more on AI and ChatGPT and bots to benefit from the problems that they are facing. I think as practitioners, whoever the practitioners in the crowd would agree with me that there's already a lot of stigma when it comes to seeking help and going to therapy. So somewhere AI is making like it a little bit more difficult to connect to mental health professionals in that sense, because you have sort of like a shortcut. I want to ask a question to both of you that, in your opinion, how do you feel that as an AI scientist or a wellness practitioner, how do you feel that, what kind of role do you can play in making the people aware of not replacing AI, with the mental health or therapy? And yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, I think mental health is very interesting because it's distinct from, I guess, physical health in a few different ways. One of them, it's less objective. Like if you get 10 doctors in a room and they discuss a rash on someone's hand, probably they will agree. And even if they don't, they can actually do like a blood test, or there's other ways to kind of really confirm the objective truth. You put 10 psychologists in a room, they probably wouldn't really agree. And that's not because they, it's because maybe fundamentally there is no ground truth in that sense. Another thing is physical health is very individual. Like you break your leg, you fix your leg, that's it. A lot of mental health is caused by the systems we live in, the communities we live in. So the solution should probably also be solved more on a community level. Like if you're being bullied at work or at school and you say like, well, here's a breathing exercise, it feels a little bit cynical, right? Like that's not really what the solution should be. Another big problem is obviously access. Like a lot of people don't have resources to pay for a psychologist. This is, maybe better than nothing. Like maybe the comparison shouldn't be AI versus psychologist. It should be AI versus nothing. So, sorry, what was your question again?
My question was that how would you make general population aware?
Oh yeah, I guess. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. So I guess my point is it should not be a standalone tool. We should you can build an AI for like a physical health problem, like scanning your skin or something. But AI for mental health should be seen as a collective tool, and it should be really integrated into an existing ecosystem. Which also means, training, educating people how to use it responsibly. I mean, I talk to psychologists all the time, and people also use ChatGPT maybe to write like summaries of their conversations. But some of them have also asked me like, yeah, I save a lot of time, but maybe the process of writing the summary is actually really valuable too, because that's when I really structure my thoughts. So they are also kind of struggling, how do you balance that? So I do think it's like an all of society approach.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think that there is like there's clear like unsafe ways to use AI and to use tools, but I don't really think that there's a right or wrong way. It's really like what you are comfortable with. And I think the more important thing is to be aware when you are using these tools, right? Because they're there to support us and we hope that they can support us. But then we shouldn't, again, over rely. I keep repeating that word, but over rely on them and not be aware of our experience of using them. Yeah. And yeah, I really like how you mentioned the psychologists like reevaluating the use of AI. It's so true. It's like we all kind of use it. Yeah, it's just, like whether or not you feel like, oh, suddenly you can no longer do something as well as you used to because now you're relying on it too much. And yeah, adjust accordingly. And so I'm not really I'm not saying that people shouldn't use it. I just think that people need to be a bit more aware.
It's a bit like we're all living for this big social experiment, collectively.
Yeah, for sure. And if you have any tips, do share it with people around you. I think that's the thing. Like we can all learn together because it's a very new space, and we shouldn't be afraid of it. But we should come together and figure it out.
We have time for one last question. Yeah.
Lovely sharing. Thank you very much. I'm a trainer coach and I'm working with individuals with learning challenges, disabilities, autism. I'm just curious because with any technological innovation, any kind of change, people tend to adjust and adapt. When calculators came, people lost the use of mathematicals and then mental math. So this is just a shift. We have Dr. Google already. People are just relying on AI to make fast decisions. I use AI all the time. I love it. The problem is this: who's talking about the content? Because AI, as you talked about, it's not just the echo chamber. It's like I'm prompting something, the questions are coming out from me, and AI is going to just mirror that. But the problem is it's trawling content across an extraordinarily large repositories of information. Some of that information is all messed up. Some of it will actually make the individual who's using it think that they are getting prescriptions. Like, I'm going to get this, my problem identified, and they over-identify with that issue, and then it becomes more and more. Now, who's talking about the way the content is being managed, and it's a mess, because AI doesn't have a brain. It's just a collective processing system, right? So where does that come in? I know you talked about guardrails. If you're familiar with Mindvalley's virtual coach, what's beautiful, it's so friendly, it's lovely, it's better than talking to a human being. But after a while, you realize that I'm just hearing myself, right? Thanks.
Yeah, it's a very important question. Yeah, I think there was a recent study where people also talk about it, and they actually find chatbots more empathetic than humans. But then when they realize it's a chatbot, they actually find it less empathetic than humans. So that's really interesting, right? Like the perceived empathy is higher, but the actual empathy, like what is empathy, right? It's actually like really important questions we need to ask ourselves. Yeah, these systems are trained on a lot of data, and some of it is messy, but there's also some extra layers. So it's kind of trained on all of these data sets, but there's some steps after that to kind of align it a little bit more with human preferences. So if like some toxic forum on like Hardware Zone or Reddit, people swear and use language to discuss certain mental health issues, that would never really show up in a chatbot because of that kind of safety training afterwards. But yeah, these models definitely encode certain values, and that can definitely be problematic, especially like cultural values. Sometimes it can be quite subtle as well, so you don't really notice it immediately. Yeah, that's all I can say.
We have much to add to that as well, but I mean, yeah, it's true that like the outputs of AI is never consistent. Yeah, you can have the same prompt and different results comes out. So, and I think that's why it's risky, right? So there is risk because of that reason. And yeah, the guardrails help, but they might not solve all of the issues that you mentioned. Yeah, and that's why we talk.
I think one benefit maybe of these technologies is that there is always a follow-up. So because before ChatGPT, there was a bit of a trend of teenagers self-diagnosing, which I think was quite problematic. But that was kind of because they just read one thing and they're like, oh, I recognize some of the symptoms. I must have ADHD, or I must have clinically great anxiety or something, which maybe was not true at all. At least with these chatbots, there is a bit of a follow-up. They can ask some more questions. That is kind of the hope, I guess, with these technologies, that they can be guided a little bit more. It's more continuous. That gives me a bit of hope as well.
I think like self-diagnosing is also kind of like a trend that is happening, right? They don't even need to use AI. A lot of use are self-diagnosing based on what they see on social media. So it's not even just an AI problem, self-diagnosing. There's a trend on like, oh, I now have ADHD, you know, I have autism, you know, like people just want to be different. And I think that's a slightly different issue. And actually, now that Onno mentioned that, I can talk about a little bit more my friend, because she has bipolar, not well actually borderline personality disorder. It's a bit mixed, but and before talking about the follow up piece, before she sees her her therapist once a month, right? And with personality or with personality disorder, she needs a lot of attention. So that kind of the chat now gives her the attention that she needs between therapy trips or her trips to the therapist. And that really helps keep her stable for a longer period of time before she meets her therapist again. Right. So the important part is to ensure that you're not replacing professional support completely. So, but it's used in tandem, and I see that it helps her. Again, checking in with her always is quite important. But yeah, that could be another way that can be used quite well too.
Okay. We're gonna end off with one last question from the Zoom side of things. So with AI, it's a case of information overload and who to trust. Any potential ways of overcoming this as a layperson as we embrace the future?
I think it's really difficult if you don't have a certain level of self-awareness, right? Because no one can restrict how you use AI, right? It's something that you do in your personal space. But I would say that like if you want to have something a bit more concrete to think about when you are using AI, then you maybe can find you can think about the replacement part, right? If you're replacing, again, I repeat this twice already, but like replacing, if you feel like you're replacing real life conversations with AI, something to take note of. There's also like the 3 strikes rule that we try to follow. So that is if you feel like you're talking to AI about the same problems more than 3 times, stop yourself. And also thirdly, like if you feel like you're talking to an AI chatbot about certain problems, do also try to reach out to a person within 24 hours. Right. So just try to be more aware of how you use AI and make sure that you are taking very, very clear steps for yourself on reaching out to real life connections beyond just the chat.
I think in terms of information overload, I actually think AI can play a good role there because it can actually filter out exactly what you need and reduce it a little bit. In terms of trust, trust is obviously very, very important. I previously talked about this difference between physical health, mental health. If my doctor is very rude to me, but he gives me the right diagnosis and the right medication, do I really care? Not really, right? But if my therapist is rude to me, I do care because the relationship is part of the treatment. So trust is kind of the foundation of any kind of mental health journey. It's very important to get good information. And there is a lot of misinformation or disinformation even on mental health. So I think it's definitely important that these tools are grounded in trusted, curated content. And I think that also shows that there is still a future for reputable organizations collecting all this information and continuously updating it based on research to be more data driven in a sense. Because in a sense, like therapy in the mental health field, it still is not super data driven, not as much as like some physical health fields, and it's just because it's inherently very subjective and difficult. So I do think there's actually room for AI to enable hyper personalization and building more trustworthy tools long term.
Okay. With that, I'll close with one last question for both of you, right? And that is that is there any helpful resources or reading materials that you would like to share with us, whether it's in relation to the topic or with your work itself? So anything you would like to share to our community?
I'm actually teaching a course on AI for mental health at NUS this semester. So you can check out the course website. And I put a lot of references there to read if anyone's interested. Other than that, I mean, you can just ask AI, I suppose.
For myself, I do have like a few resources that I've found, and I can send them to you, and then you can share them with the rest. But yeah, they're just mostly research papers and like information that you might want to, you want to find out more about using AI in this space.
Actually, they are very humble. I was hoping they will share myline.sg and Total Wellness Initiatives. They're actually doing very, very good work there. So do check it out, right? And if you need any more information about their agency, please talk to them. I think they'll stay a little bit longer, right? But a round of applause for our two panelists, please. So I'm going to be closing the session. So, no. Just share and go down to the ending. Yep. With the sleep, please. Okay, next. Okay, go back. One more. Okay, stop. Yeah, so just a general reminder, we have another talk coming out in February. It's on sleep normal optimization. It's gonna be on Zoom. I think it's pretty good. So if this is something that interests you, please sign up and share around with everyone. This is a free of charge talk, yeah? Next. Of course, also the fully sponsored suicide prevention workshop for 4 hours, right? It's going to be on Zoom as well. I hope this is something that's of interest to you and your community. Next. But what is of interest to me is this one. We want to gather more feedback in terms of what are the future topics you hope to see, right? Not only for the physical audience here, but on Zoom as well. We also will be circulating this survey for certain community at large. So what are some of the future topics you want to see from us, right? And or some of the challenges that you have that you hope to be addressed, right? So please, we'll take a 2 minutes pause, right, for them to do the survey. Or you'll just scan and save aside, okay? Because I got one more. Okay, you'll scan first, yes. But your voice matters, huh? It's so you can see for Caring for Life, we try to bring in the different stakeholders, right? We also want to hear from you as well. What are some of the topics that you want to know? Surprisingly, there was quite a lot of requests on sleep last year. That's how you all came about. It tells you something. Yeah. A lot of it. Okay, never mind. Sorry. Okay, next. So do scan this as well. This is the post-event survey for today's talk, right? Any further feedbacks that you want to see, whether the changes is too long, too short, and things like that, right? This is another survey. Do scan as well, right? So do 2 surveys, okay, for us. We really need your inputs. Yeah, but with that, we have come to the end for today's lunch talk, right? We hope to see all of you for the subsequent ones as well. Please do keep coming. We try to offer different topics because that's how wide the spectrum of mental health and mental wellness is. I sincerely hope that you have benefited from today's session, and do stay connected with us if there's anything you would like to share or you want to be one of our speakers in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.